All right, let's start off with lifting and moving. I want to discuss a couple of key concepts. These are fundamental concepts when it comes to lifting and moving. First and foremost, just like anything we do in medicine, do no harm. First and foremost, make sure whatever you do, we don't do any harm to the patient. That is our number one goal. Number two, kind of ties in with that, is proper body mechanics. Okay, this means using a power lift, keeping your back straight, using your legs instead of your back. So like this, we want to use our legs, not our back. We want to try to avoid pulling and pushing if we can, especially things that are over your head. Those are really important concepts. Try to avoid lifting and turning simultaneously. If you do have to reach and pull across, like pulling across a stretcher, make sure you use your back is locked in position and not using your back to do the lifting or pulling. Okay. Number three, I call this Kellyology, which is just the way I look at things. We do it. It's not something that you see us talk about. It's not talked about in books and stuff. I call it chocking. Okay, chocking, and it's something that you may be familiar with a vehicle. For example, say we've got a hill here, and your little car. Okay, and then you come back here and stick something to keep the vehicle from rolling back. That's what a chock is. Something we do, especially with experience, you find that the stretcher has wheels on it and the wheels move. So when you're going to sit a patient onto the stretcher, you want to chock the wheels of the stretcher. Now, one way to do that, take your foot, slide it around behind the wheel. That's the easy way to do it. They have brakes. You can lock the brakes down as well. But chocking works really well. If you're both on the same side of the stretcher, you and your partner, you can each stick a foot behind the wheel. Another way to chock it is simply be on the opposite side of the stretcher, so that when the patient's sitting down, the stretcher's between the two of you, and then you basically chock it with your body. So that's one form of chocking. The other form of chocking is when you're lifting a patient up out of the floor and you want them to try to help you stand, anything like that. A lot of times you will have patients who have slid down out of the chair. They're not hurt. They just need help getting up. And the reason they slid down a lot of times is because they had socks on and it was a slick floor. So you want to prevent that from happening. And in order to do that, you'll put your foot right in front of their feet before you go to stand them up, and that chocks their foot and it keeps them from sliding out from under them. So chocking is a concept that we'll use throughout the most all of your lifting and moving. 4 is, again, another Kellyology. I call it cover the corners. Okay, and this means on the 4 corners of the stretcher, make sure you have a hold of all 4 corners, especially when you are moving across any surface that may be the slightest bit rough. Even parking lots, they have a tendency to have rocks or debris or anything like that that the stretcher may catch. So you want to make sure that you have hold of all 4 corners. If one way to do that with 3 people is to have the person who is walking forward to have both corners, and then the other 2 can turn their back at that point, 1 on each hand, and then walk in the direction that you're going. 4 people works really well, 1 on each corner. That's part of working smarter, lifting smarter, working smarter. So covering the corners, exceptionally important to do, especially when you're moving across any type of uneven surface. It's real common in facility. It's common to turn your back and use a single hand. Sometimes there's a handle on the stretcher. Use that hand and pull the stretcher as you go. In facilities, that's generally acceptable. Those you're not likely to run into rocks and uneven surfaces and stuff. It's always a possibility, so just keep that in mind, covering your corners. Number 5 is to lift smarter. Okay? And what I mean by lifting smarter is use the people that are there. Keep in mind, you want to have a nice long career, and in order to do that, you've got to protect your back. If there's no need to try to show everybody how strong you are and I can lift this patient by myself, you probably can, and that's fine. You don't have to do it. When you've got extra people there, use those people to help you. Understand the next concept is leverage and tools. Keep in mind, when the stretcher is at full height, the leverage on that, it takes very little to get the stretcher to tilt. So you want to make sure that you keep that in mind. Go with the long axis of the stretcher, not against it. Use the tools that you have available. Stair chairs, we're starting to get motorized stair chairs that will raise and lower up stairs for us to take a whole lot of that workload off of us. There are tarps with handles, all kinds of different tools that are out there that can help you adjust and lift patients properly, safely, not doing any harm to either you or the patient. So make sure you use those tools. Work smarter, lift smarter. If you've got the luxury of first responders, fire department, rescue squad, even another EMS crew that happens to be there, then have them to help you lift the stretcher, lift the patient anytime that you can do that. That helps prevent harm, because the more hands you put on them, the less chance you got of hurting them. And of course, the less chance you've got of hurting you, because you've got extra people using and helping you to lift.